Hello, my animation fans. Today we will be doing something a little bit different. I'm not making a top 10 list this time. Instead, I'll be reviewing every animated Oscar winner from first to most recent. I saw some other people do this and thought since I've seen most of them, I could do my own version. Also, to help separate this video from others, I have to do something. Let me think. Oh, I got it. I'll give you 3 fun facts for each film. Also, if you're wondering, no, I don't hold the Oscars in that high regards. We've made some weird decisions, and in 2013, we found out some stuff about some of the voters, and it's downright infuriating, but we'll get to that later. Also, one more thing, I won't be reviewing every live-action Best Picture winner, for 2 reasons, that is. 1, most of the Best Picture winners are too artsy for me anyways, and 2, it's been around a lot longer. Imagine how much work and editing I'd have to do. Let's start with the animated film that made the Best Animated Feature Award a thing, Chicken Run. But first, 3 fun facts. Fact number 1. Originally, Ginger, the main character, had a young brother, but the filmmakers removed him because they thought it would make the film too cute. Fact number 2. The director had a chicken coop with chickens as a kid, and got the idea from chickens trying to escape all the time. He even had 2 pet chickens named Ginger and Rocky. Fact number 3. The dance scene was acted out first by people on the crew, then animated after the animators knew what it was to look like in the film. Anyways, onto the review. This film was great! It has good animation, some memorable characters, dry British humor, which I love by the way, and you gotta hand it to the filmmakers for doing this all with plasticine. I like the movie's storyline. It's like a prison escape film, but with chickens. Also, there's a lot of creativity with the escape from the pie machine, and, spoiler, how they turn the hen house into a plane near the end. Great movie, I recommend it if you haven't seen it. I would say more, but I'm not making the video that long. Also, anybody else find Miss Tweety to be surprisingly terrifying? I mean, really, look at her.
Ogres are like onions.
That's right, it's time to talk about Shrek. But first, 3 fun facts. Fact number 1, the original voice of Shrek was Chris Farley, but after his passing, the role went to Mike Myers. There's even some voice recordings that can be found with Chris Farley. Fact number 2, the original idea was about a teenage ogre who didn't want to join the family tradition of scaring people and instead wanted to be a knight. Fact number 3, the song All-Star was a placeholder song as they wanted to write an original song in its place, but the test audience liked it so much that they kept it in anyways. Anyways, it's worth noting that this movie has spawned a lot of memes, but despite that, Shrek is actually a very good movie. In fact, a great movie. I like how it has this fairy tale world and creatures, a great soundtrack, a cast of great characters, and a nice story that's both funny and heartwarming. I also like how it's both a great parody of fairy tales and it's great on its own. Also, I can quote this movie and its sequel anytime. One small problem I might have with it is the fart and burp jokes. There's quite a few of them, and I'm not really a huge fan of those. But to be fair, they're not that bad, and I've seen worse cases of those jokes. Heck, in one case it actually helps Shrek's and Fiona's relationship. Kinda like Swiss Army Man, natural gas can be poetic. Some people think Monsters, Inc. should have won instead, but although I like that movie as well, I'm glad Shrek won and think it deserved it, although I am disappointed that Moses Jones wasn't even nominated. Sorry, I haven't seen Spirited Away yet. Once I see it, I'll review it.
Fishy, fishy.
Okay, now it's time we see what Finding Nemo's all about. But first, 3 facts. Fact number 1. The Pixar team went diving in the Great Barrier Reef, went to many aquariums, studied weird word, the study of fish and other sea life. They even ended up getting a 25-gallon fish tank in the studio. Fact number 2. Originally, Marlin's backstory as to why he only has 1 son and no wife, the Barracuda incident, was going to be told through multiple flashbacks throughout the movie, but director Andrew Stanton made it into one big opening scene so it would be easier to follow. Fact number 3. Bruce's name is based off the mechanical shark from the Jaws movies. The shark itself had no name, but the animatronic shark was named Bruce. Anyways, let's dive into this. Finding Nemo is truly one-of-a-kind film. It actually made me interested in sea life and the ocean as a young lad. And I'm still intrigued by the ocean to this very day. Anyways, it's just a great movie with memorable locations that are well animated and nice to look at, and plenty of characters who all have something memorable about them, even the ones that only appear in one scene. I'll always remember so much about this movie. The fact that never again will a fish make you feel so much, the tank game and how each one had a memorable character and design, and their attempts to escape the tank, and how big this whole adventure was. It definitely deserved an Oscar. I'll say one thing before I move on to the next film. Don't flush your fish down the toilet. Sure, depending on where you live, it will end up in the ocean, but there's a cleaning process first. So either the fish dies from the dirty water in the sewers, dies from hitting all the pipes on the way down, or if it survives all of that, then the cleaning process will chop it up. Okay, got that? Don't flush your fish. Moving on.
Honey!
What?
Where's my super suit?
Okay, this is an interesting one. But first, 3 facts. Originally, this was to be a hand-drawn animated movie, but then Brad Bird had to move studios since Warner Brothers Animation Studios was down at the time, so he went to Pixar and turned to CG, so it could be like the other movies. Fact number 2, the main villain Syndrome was originally just going to appear somewhere near the opening scenes, but the crew thought he was a much more entertaining villain, so he got the role as opposed to the original villain named Erax, who was more of a serious and calm villain, who had the same plan as Syndrome, but a different backstory/motivation. Fact number 3, Brad Bird got the idea from his midlife crisis he had with his family in the 90s. Anyways, The Incredibles. This is a good one. It's like a mix of action movies from the 60s and situational comedies like The Simpsons or The Office. Speaking of the action, there's a lot of fun and exciting action scenes. It's a comedy movie, but even comedy movies can have some pretty intense moments, and I love it. I should also say that it's quite mature for a family movie. With the villain attempting a genocide against the Supers, Helen, aka Elastigirl, suspecting Bob of cheating, he's not though, and the midlife crisis that Bob, aka Mr. Incredible, goes through, which I'm sure a lot of older viewers can relate to, that last one. Can't imagine many 7-year-olds relating with a midlife crisis, unless they're anti-vax. Which helps the movie appeal to both kids and adults, due to the fun action and humor for younger viewers, and some mature themes and good story for adults. Also, these characters are all great. The entire family are all great characters that have their own development, though I do wish we got more scenes of the rest of the family, as the movie mostly focuses on Mr. Incredible/Bob. The other characters like the suit designer Edna Mode is pretty funny, Mr. Incredible's friend Frozen is a good/fun character, and the main villain Syndrome is probably the best Pixar bad guy. Do I think it should have won? Well, it's hard to say. There are 2 other animated movies that came out the same year, the SpongeBob movie and Shrek 2, which I also really liked, possibly even more than The Incredibles. But it's a good choice since it's a great film and a true animated classic. Also, no, I'm not saying it's incredible, that's too cliche. Oh, and one thing I forgot to say. One other thing I really like about The Incredibles is that unlike a lot of superhero movies today, the humor doesn't really feel forced and blends in well, while also, it doesn't feel too dramatic and trying too hard to be edgy, to the point where you want to yell, "Lighten up."
That's it, cheese. We'll go somewhere where there's cheese.
Back to the Aardman, am I right, laddie? But first, 3 facts. Fact number 1. The 24-carat joke was added in last minute. It was originally a silver trophy. Fact number 2. The Were-Rabbit model broke several times during the film, including 3 at the climax. Fact number 3. Aardman decided to create Chicken Run first to see if they were movie material. Once the movie was a success, they had confidence that they could make a film starring their characters, Wallace and Gromit, from the short films. Anyways, this is probably the most British cartoon film out there, and I'm a sucker for British comedy. Also, the animation is great. Hard to believe they did it all with hand and clay. The animation looks better than the animated shorts, but since it's a higher budget, that's a given. The story of the movie is also intriguing and quite fun. The twist of who the Were-Rabbit is was also well done, and it's just too good to have Wallace and Gromit in a feature film. The villain, although not as good as the other Wallace and Gromit villains, is actually pretty funny, and he also looks like a child molester. Was it deserving of the Oscar? Well, maybe. I mean, Corpse Bride was also very good as well, and I haven't seen Howl's Moving Castle, but I think I might prefer Corpse Bride. but Wallace and Gromit is a fun movie for film goers of all ages. Remember when penguins were everywhere? They're cute and all, but damn. Anyways, 3 fun facts. Fact number 1, the original script had actual aliens, like from outer space, at the end of the film. That would have been some Echo the Dolphin type shit right there. Fact number 2, this is the last film that Steve Irwin was in. He did the voice of one of the elephant seals, and an albatross in a deleted scene, which wasn't even fully finished, but they decided to finish the animation on that scene and put it in the DVD as a special feature in his memory. Fact number 3, Prince didn't want them to use his music in the film at first, but then he saw footage and not only let them use his music, but he wrote a song for them to use in the credits. Anyways, Happy Feet. It's a perfectly fine, cute kids film. I know this movie has some really big fans, but I wouldn't consider myself a massive fan. Don't get me wrong, this film can be quite entertaining at times. There are some good song covers, the dancing is pretty cool, and the animation can look very nice at times. The one problem with the animation I have is that it can be kind of questionable. Don't get me wrong, it's well made and can look quite beautiful in some shots, but it's a little too realistic. Like, there are a lot of times where the penguins look too similar to one another. Like, I can't tell who Mumble's dad is amongst the background characters. All the Adelie Penguin comic reliefs look identical, and even as a kid, I had a hard time telling between Mumble's mom and his love interest. But I'll say this. At least I could read the facial expressions and tell how they were feeling, unlike the fugly-looking Lion King remake. And I kind of relate to Mumble. I do think that Happy Feet is a metaphor for people with disabilities, since Mumble was dropped as an egg, and his inability to sing and his constant tap dancing is considered an abnormality. And as someone who's on the spectrum, the scenes where he's being looked down upon for not being able to sing like everyone else really got to me. However, besides Mumble, none of the other characters were really that memorable. None of them were really bad though. Just not very memorable. Except maybe that Rockhopper penguin, though that's mostly due to him being voiced by Robin Williams. Yeah, plus the story itself doesn't make the most sense when you think about it. Why such a musical society against dancing? Do I think it deserved the Oscar? Well, I wouldn't really say so. Don't get me wrong, it's a fine, cute movie that has its moments, but Flushed Away was so much more interesting and creative. And Over the Hedge also. And one more thing, this is going to be the last non-Disney or Pixar movie for a while, so enjoy it while you can. Bonjour, ladies and gentlemen, the movie that makes you hungry for cartoon food. But first, 3 fun facts. Fact number 1, pet rats were kept around the studio to help the animators study the way they move and such. They also ate lots of good food, and even took cooking lessons for research. Yeah, research. You just wanted good food, didn't you? Fact number 2, Doug the dog's shadow can be seen during the scene where Remy is running around Paris for the first time. Keep in mind, this movie came out 3 years before Up. Fact number 3, a French wine company wanted to help promote the movie by having the main character appear on some wine glasses, but Pixar decided against it as they didn't want kids to drink alcohol. Anyways, let's talk about Ratatouille. Damn, this movie is atmospheric, with its depiction of France, and it makes me want to visit that place for real. Anyways, the story is unique. Can't think of many movies with a rat who wants to cook. The characters are great. Remy is a likable and relatable protagonist, and his dedication to cooking is something that's admirable. Linguini is a decent and kind of relatable character to some regard. And Linguini's love interest happens to be an enjoyable character, with her attitude. A lot of love interest characters are usually kind of boring, but she isn't. There's a lot of side characters, like the other chefs and the rest of the rat colony, who are kind of cool in design and personality traits, but they're not on screen enough to make a major impact. Except for the critic. I'm not going to talk too much about him since he is kind of a spoiler character, but he's not as one-dimensional as you may think. Oh, I guess I should mention the villain. He's fine. Not amazing, but this movie honestly didn't need an overly evil villain. Anyways, this film will make you hungry, and possibly make you want to cook. Did it deserve its Oscar? Yeah, sure. Though I should check what it was up against. Yeah, that's a good one, and, that's a funny way of pronouncing the Simpsons movie. That's it for part 1. Hope you join me for part 2.